Hey guys, tonight we dive into the peaceful life of a Chimu potter in ancient Peru, where your hands sink into cool, squishy clay as the river hums beside you, the sun warming your back while birds chatter overhead. You're standing on the muddy banks, the scent of wet earth filling your lungs, and the rhythmic slap of water against the shore sets a sleepy beat. This isn't just a job, it's a dance with nature, and you probably won't survive this without getting your sandals soaked or a clay smear on your cheek. The Chimu people masters of the coast, from the 900s to 1470, turned this messy craft into an art that fed their souls and their trade networks. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see if we're shaping clay under the same stars. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge down to the river at dawn, the air still carrying a chill that makes you shiver, your bare feet sinking into the damp soil. The clay here is rich, a dark brown treasure pulled from the earth's embrace, and you scoop it up with a grunt, feeling its cool weight in your hands. It's gritty alive with tiny pebbles that scratch your palms, but that's part of the magic. Each grain tells a story of the land. You hum a little tune, something your grandmother taught you, as you haul it back to your workspace, a simple patch of ground near your hut, where the sun hits just right. The smell of the river lingers, mixed with the smoky hint of last night's fire, and you can't help but smile at how this routine feels like a hug from the past. Your tools are basic: a smooth stone for shaping a wooden paddle to even things out, and a bowl of water to keep the clay pliable. You squat down, knees creaking a bit. Hey, even potters get old and start kneading the clay like it's dough for a feast. It squishes between your fingers, and you imagine it's the heartbeat of the Chimu world, pulsing under your touch. A mainstream historical fact: the Chimu civilization thrived along Peru's northern coast, building cities like Chan Chan, the largest adobe city ever, showcasing their pottery skills to the world. You chuckle softly, bet they didn't advertise the backaches that came with it. The first joke's on me. Why did the potter bring a ladder to take his craft to the next level? As you work, the sun climbs higher, warming your shoulders, and you notice a quirky tidbit. A local legend says the river spirits sometimes shape the clay themselves, leaving tiny, perfect bowls for lazy potters. You roll your eyes, but keep an eye out just in case. The process is slow, meditative, and you lose yourself in the rhythm, the slap of clay against stone, blending with the distant bleat of a llama. Historians still argue whether the Chimu learned pottery from earlier cultures like the Moche or developed it independently. Either way, you're proud to carry the tradition. Your hands ache, but it's a good ache, like stretching after a long nap. By midday, you've got a rough lump ready, and you shape it into a ball, pressing your thumbs into the center to start a bowl. The clay resists at first, stubborn as a mule, but you coax it, whispering encouragements like it's a stubborn kid. The second joke: what do you call a potter who's always late? A clay procrastinator? You dip your fingers in the water, smoothing the edges, and feel a surge of pride as it starts to look like something. The heat beats down now, and you wipe sweat from your brow, smearing more clay across your face. Oops, there goes that clean look. A breeze carries the scent of wildflowers, and you pause, letting the piece settle in. As the afternoon fades, you set your work aside to dry the clay, hardening under the sun's gentle kiss. You stretch, feeling the day's labor in your bones, and think about tomorrow more. Clay, more shaping, more life. The third joke: why did the pot go to therapy? It had too many cracks to handle. You sit back, watching the river glitter, and let the soft hum of the world lull you into a quiet contentment. This is your life, simple yet profound, and you wouldn't trade it for anything. You wake to the soft glow of dawn filtering through your woven reed mat, the air carrying a faint salty tang from the nearby Pacific. Your muscles ache from yesterday's clay work, but you shrug it off, lacing up your sandals and grabbing a woven basket today. You are gathering Earth's gifts from the rugged Peruvian landscape. The ground crunches underfoot as you head out, the scent of dry grass and distant sage, mixing with the cool morning breeze. Your back protests with each step up the hillside, but the view of the coast stretching out below golden sands, meeting turquoise waves, makes it worth it. You probably won't survive this trek without a scraped knee or a sunburn, but that's just part of the adventure. You start with the clay deposit, spotting a rich vein where the earth has cracked open, revealing that dark, promising brown. You dig with a wooden spade, the soil cool against your hands, and load your basket, humming that same tune from yesterday. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen? Okay, maybe not, but the Chimu knew how to use what they had. A mainstream historical fact, the Chimu economy relied heavily on trade with pottery as a key export linking coastal cities to inland regions. You grin, bet the traders didn't complain about the free samples. The first joke. Why did the potter love hiking? He wanted to dig up some earthy inspiration. You move on to collect temper-crushed shells and sand to strengthen the clay scavenging along the beach, where waves lap at your feet, cold and invigorating. A quirky tidbit, some say the Chimu believed shells held the ocean spirit whispering secrets to skilled potters like you. You tilt your head listening for those whispers, but all you hear is a seagull's squawk close enough. The basket grows heavy, and you adjust it on your shoulder, the weight a badge of honor. Historians still argue whether the Chimu's material choices were practical or tied to spiritual beliefs. Either way, you're grateful for the shell's gritty texture. By mid-morning, you're sweating, the sun beating down as you climb back, pausing to rest under a gnarled tree. The shade feels like a hug, and you sip water from a gourd, the liquid cool against your parched throat. You spot a patch of wild herbs, maybe thyme, and pluck some, their sharp scent filling the air. The second joke. What do you call a potter's hike? A clay Mendes adventure. You trudge on the basket, digging into your skin, but the thought of tomorrow's work keeps you going. Those gifts will shape your next masterpiece. Back at your workspace, you unload your haul, the clay and shells spilling onto the ground like treasure. The afternoon sun warms the scene, and you sit cross-legged, sorting through it all, feeling the sand's roughness and the clay's smoothness. A lizard skitters by, and you chuckle, nature's little helper, keeping the bugs away. The third joke. Why did the potter bring a map to find the best claymate spots? You mix a handful of shell into the clay, testing its feel, and nod in satisfaction. The day winds down with the sound of waves in the distance, a gentle lullaby as you plan your next steps. The landscape's gifts now yours to transform. You rise with the first light creeping through your hut, the faint rustle of palm leaves overhead, blending with the distant crash of waves. Your hands still carry the memory of yesterday's, gathering a slight stiffness in your fingers, but you're eager to start kneading the soul into this clay. You step outside, the morning air, cool against your skin, carrying that salty breeze and the earthy scent of the materials you hauled back. Your workspace awaits a patch of smooth earth, where the sun will soon warm the ground, and you settle in, ready to wrestle this lump into submission. You probably won't survive this without a crick in your neck, or a clay streak across your forehead, but that's the potter's badge of honor. You grab a chunk of the clay, still damp from the river, and plop it onto your work surface, the thud echoing softly. It's heavy, almost defiant, and you press your palms into it, feeling the coolness give way under your weight. You knead with a steady rhythm, pushing and pulling, the motion hypnotic like a heartbeat. The grit of the shells you added yesterday scratches your skin, a reminder of the coast's gifts. And you hum that old tune. Remember that seagull squawk? It's your soundtrack now. A mainstream historical fact. The Chimu perfected their pottery techniques by 1000 AD, creating vessels that showcase their cultural identity across the Andes. You smirk, bet they didn't brag about the sorebacks. Your fingers dig deeper, working out air pockets that could crack your pot later, and the clay starts to feel alive, pliable, like a friend you're shaping. A quirky tidbit: some Chimu potters swore the clay sang when kneaded just right, a low hum only the skilled could hear. You pause, tilting your head with a grin. Maybe it's just the wind, but you'll take the magic. The sun climbs higher, warming your shoulders, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the clay dust. Historians still argue whether the Chimu's kneading methods were purely functional or carried spiritual significance. Either way, you feel a connection to something bigger. By mid-morning, your arms ache, but you keep going, rolling the clay into a smooth ball, the motion a dance of strength and care. The first joke: why did the clay refuse to cooperate? It had a need for independence. You dip your hands in a bowl of water, the cool splash, a relief, and smooth the surface, watching it gleam faintly. The rhythm lulls you, and you lose track of time, the world narrowing to the feel of the clay, the scent of wet earth, and the soft patter of your hands. A lizard darts by, again your little supervisor, and you chuckle, tossing it a nod. The afternoon deepens, and you test the clay's readiness, pinching it to check its elasticity. It stretches just right, and you lean back, stretching your own creaky joints. Another sign of a potter's wisdom. The second joke: what do you call a lazy kneader, a half-baked artist? The sun beats down, and you wipe your face, smearing more clay. Oops, there goes the clean look again. You imagine the pot, this will become a bowl for tomorrow's feast, and the thought warms you. The third joke: why did the potter meditate? To find his inner clay. As the day fades, you cover the clay with a damp cloth, letting it rest and sit back, the soft hum of the fan you'd imagine nearby, blending with the real world's quiet. This is your craft, your piece. You wake to the gentle patter of early rain on your reed roof, the air thick with humidity and that familiar salty breeze from the coast. Your hands still stiff from yesterday's kneading itch to create, and you step outside to your workspace, the damp earth squishing under your sandals. The clay sits there wrapped in its damp cloth, calling you to shape your first vessel. You settle cross-legged, the morning cool against your skin, and unwrap it, the scent of wet earth rising like a promise. The sun peeks through clouds, casting a soft glow, and you probably won't survive this without a muddy mess on your tunic. But that's part of the fun. You grab the clay ball, its weight comforting in your palms, and start pressing your thumbs into the center, feeling it yield like a sleepy friend. It's sticky now, clinging to your fingers, and you rotate it slowly, widening the hole with a gentle push. The rhythm takes over your hands, moving almost on their own, guided by generations of Chimu potters before you. The texture shifts under your touch, smooth, yet gritty from the shells, and you hum that old tune. Remember that lizard supervisor? He's back watching from a rock. A mainstream historical fact: by the 1200s, Chimu potters were crafting intricate stirrup spout vessels, a signature style that dazzled traders. You grin, bet they didn't mention the clay under their nails. You shape the walls, pinching and pulling the clay, rising like a living thing. A quirky tidbit: some say the Chimu believed each pot held a spirit born when the potter's breath touched it. You puff a little air, chuckling, maybe this one's a chatterbox. The sun warms your back now, and sweat trickles down, mixing with the clay dust on your hands. Historians still argue whether these vessels were purely utilitarian or carried deep ritual meaning. Either way, you feel a thrill as the shape emerges. The first joke: why did the potter's first pot flop? It couldn't handle the pressure. By mid-morning, you've got a rough bowl, wobbly but promising, and you smooth the rim with a wet finger, the cool water a relief. Your knees ache from sitting, a sign of a potter's wisdom kicking in, and you stretch, groaning like an old llama. The second joke: what do you call a potter's first try? A clay stirpiece in progress. You add a slight curve to the base, imagining it holding maize for tomorrow's meal, and the thought fills you with pride. The rain starts again, a soft drizzle, and you shield your work, the patter blending with your hum. A butterfly flutters by, nature's critic, and you nod unfazed. The afternoon deepens and you refine the shape, pressing a wooden paddle against the sides to even them out. The clay resists, stubborn as ever, but you coax it, whispering encouragements like it's a shy child. The third joke: why did the potter bring a mirror to admire his clay amazing work? The scent of wet earth grows stronger, and you lose yourself in the process, the world fading to the feel of the clay, the sound of rain, and the warmth of your effort. You set the vessel aside to dry its surface, glistening, and lean back, the damp air cooling your skin. This first creation feels like a milestone, a piece of you now part of the Chimu story. You stir awake as the first rays of dawn creep through your hut, the air heavy with the lingering dampness from yesterday's rain. Your hands still tingling from shaping that wobbly bowl crave the next step, and you step outside where the clay vessel sits, drying under a patchy sky. The scent of wet earth mixes with a hint of smoke from last night's fire, and you head toward the kiln area, a circle of adobe bricks baked hard by countless firings. The ground feels warm under your sandals, and you probably won't survive this without a singed eyebrow or a cough from the smoke, but that's the potter's thrill. You check your bowl, its surface firm now, a pale gray waiting for transformation. You load it carefully into the kiln, nestling it among other pots, the clay cool against your fingers. The kiln's mouth gapes like a hungry beast, and you stack dried wood inside the crackle of twigs. A familiar tune. Remember that butterfly critic? It's fluttering nearby, judging your setup. You light the fire with a flint, the first spark flaring into a hungry glow, and step back as heat washes over you. A mainstream historical fact: the Chimu used open-pit kilns by the 1300s, mastering high-heat firing to create durable wares for trade. You smirk, bet they didn't advertise the sweat. The flames lick higher, the air thickening with smoke, and the sharp scent of burning wood. You tend the fire, adding fuel with a long stick, the heat searing your face as you peer inside. A quirky tidbit: some Chimu elders claim the kiln's heat held spirits that dance with the pots, giving them life. You chuckle, imagining tiny clay figures twirling. Maybe they're throwing a party in there. The sun climbs, baking your back, and you wipe sweat, the steam rising like a misty veil. Historians still argue whether the Chimu's firing techniques were borrowed or innovated. Either way, you feel the magic as the temperature soars. By mid-morning, the kiln roars, a steady hum vibrating through the ground, and you sit nearby, fanning yourself with a palm leaf. Your arms ache, a potter's wisdom settling in, and you stretch, groaning like a creaky cart. The first joke: why did the potter love the kiln? It gave his work a hot makeover. The heat intensifies and you adjust the airflow, the crackle of wood blending with the distant waves. A lizard skitters past your supervisor's back, and you nod unfazed. The smoke stings your eyes, but you persevere the process a dance with fire and clay. The afternoon deepens, and you monitor the kiln, the heat now a pulsing force. You poke the fire, the embers glowing red, and imagine the clay hardening inside its spirit taking shape. The second joke. What do you call a potter's kiln mishap? A fired fiasco. The scent of burnt wood fills the air, and you lose yourself in the rhythm, the heat lulling you into a trance. The sun dips, casting long shadows, and you start to cool the fire, the flames dying to a soft glow. The third joke. Why did the pot blush in the kiln? It got too fired up. You wait, the cooling process slow, the night air brushing your skin as crickets join the hum. Finally, you open the kiln at dusk, the heat rushing out like a sigh, and pull out your bowl. It's darker now, smooth and strong, the firing dreams alive in its form. You run your fingers over it, the warmth lingering, and feel a surge of pride. The stars peek out, and you sit back, the soft hum of an imagined fan, blending with the night your craft one step closer to the Chimu legacy. You wake to the gentle rustle of leaves as dawn breaks the air, carrying a faint smoky hint from last night's kiln fire. Your hands still warm from yesterday's heat itch to add life to that newly fired bowl, and you step outside where it sits cooling on a woven mat. The morning sun spills golden light across your workspace, the scent of dried clay and wild herbs mingling in the breeze. You settle down, a pot of natural pigments and a fine brush in hand, ready to decorate with ancient flair. You probably won't survive this without a smudge on your nose or a cramp from leaning in, but that's the artist's charm. You pick up the bowl, its surface smooth and cool, and trace its curves with your fingers, feeling the kiln's work etched into it. You dip your brush into a mix of crushed minerals, red ochre from the hills, black from charred wood, creating a palette as vibrant as the coast. The first strokes are hesitant, a wavy line mimicking the ocean, and you hum that old tune. Remember that lizard supervisor? He's sunning himself nearby, critiquing your art. A mainstream historical fact by the 1400s. Chimu potters adorn their wares with geometric and nature-inspired designs, reflecting their connection to the land. You chuckle, bet they didn't mention the shaky hands. You add dots and zigzags, the brush dancing across the clay, the pigment's earthy scent rising with each dip. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu believe certain patterns warded off evil spirits, turning pots into tiny shields. You grin, adding an extra swirl for luck can't hurt, right? The sun climbs, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the dust. Historians still argue whether these decorations were purely aesthetic or held ritual significance. Either way, you feel a story growing under your touch. The first joke. Why did the potter paint at night to give his pots a glow-up? By mid-morning, the design takes shape, a coastal scene with waves and fish, and you step back, stretching your aching knees, a potter's wisdom creeping in. The second joke. What do you call a potter's bad drawing? A clay scrape. You blend colors, the red fading into black, and the bowl feels like a piece of your soul now. A breeze carries the scent of the sea, and you pause, letting the piece settle. A butterfly flutters by, nature's art critic, and you nod unfazed by its silent judgment. The afternoon deepens, and you've refined the details, adding tiny fish scales with a steady hand. The clay accepts each stroke, warm from the sun, and you lose yourself in the rhythm, the brushes scratch, blending with the distant waves. The third joke. Why did the pot get a makeover? It wanted to be clever than the rest. The pigment dust coats your fingers, and you wipe your face, smearing more color. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this bowl on a trader's shelf, its story told in every line, and the thought warms you. As dusk falls, you set the bowl aside to cure its colors vivid under the fading light. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan mixing with the cricket's song, and feel a quiet pride. This decoration isn't just art, it's your link to the Chimu world, a flare that carries their spirit forward. You rise with the first light filtering through your hut, the air tinged with the salty kiss of the Pacific and the faint tang of yesterday's pigments. Your hands still dusted with ochre ache for action, and you grab a woven sack, slinging it over your shoulder to head out. Today, you're trading along coastal paths, your decorated bowl tucked inside, ready to barter with the bustling Chimu trade routes by the sea. The ground crunches under your sandals, the morning cool brushing your skin, and you catch the rhythmic crash of waves ahead. You probably won't survive this trek without a sunburn or a haggling headache, but that's the trader's life. You set out along a dusty path, the coast stretching to your left, golden sands dotted with fishing boats bobbing in the surf. The bowl clinks softly in your sack, its weight a badge of pride, and you hum that old tune. Remember that butterfly critic? It's fluttering ahead, scouting the route. The scent of seaweed and grilled fish fills the air as you near a trading hub, a lively cluster of huts where voices rise in negotiation. A mainstream historical fact, the Chimu controlled a vast trade network by the 1300s, exchanging pottery for cottonfish and gold across the Andes. You grin, bet they didn't mention the sore feet. You approach a trader, a wiry man with a toothy smile, and unpack your bowl, its colors gleaming in the sun. He inspects it, running rough fingers over the waves, and offers a bundle of dried fish. You counter with a request for cotton thread, the haggling a dance of nods and raised brows. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu traders believed a well-crafted pot could bring good fortune, so they'd toss a shell into the sea as an offering. You slip a shell from your pocket, tossing it with a wink. Can't hurt the odds. The sun climbs, warming your neck, and sweat trickles down. Historians still argue whether trade drove Chimu wealth or vice versa. Either way, you're in the thick of it. By mid-morning, you've swapped your bowl for thread and a small gold bead, the deal sealed with a firm handshake. Your knees creak, a potter's wisdom settling in, and you stretch, groaning like a tired llama. The first joke: why did the potter trade at dawn? To catch the early clay deal. The market buzzes, the scent of roasting maize, adding to the chaos. And you pause to sip water, the coolness a relief. A gull swoops overhead, nature's broker, and you chuckle unfazed. The afternoon heats up, and you wander to another stall offering a smaller pot for salt. The trader, a woman with sharp eyes, tests its weight, and you banter the exchange lively. The second joke: what do you call a potter's bad trade? A clay saster. The thread feels soft in your hands. A prize worth the walk, and you lose yourself in the rhythm of voices and waves. The sun beats down, and you wipe your brow, smearing dust. Oops, there goes the clean look. A child darts by, giggling, and you smile, the community's energy lifting you. As dusk nears you, head home the sack lighter, but your spirit full. The soft hum of an imagined fan blends with the sea's lullaby, and you reflect on the day, your craft now part of the Chimu flow. The third joke: why did the potter love trading? He got to clay his way to riches. You trudge back the path, familiar, your pot's stories spreading along the coast. You stir awake as the first light brushes your hut, the air carrying a sacred hush mingled with the distant crash of waves. your hands still faintly gritty from yesterday's trade, feel drawn to a new rhythm, and you step outside where the temple's shadow looms nearby. You live by its adobe walls, the scent of incense and sun-baked earth, filling your lungs and settle into your workspace, ready to let spirituality shape your daily flow. The morning cool brushes your skin, and you probably won't survive this day without a crick in your neck from gazing up at those towering structures. But that's the price of inspiration. You glance at the temple, its stepped pyramid rising like a silent guardian, its surface etched with faded carvings that seem to whisper ancient prayers. The bowl from your last firing sits ready, and you touch it, feeling the connection to the gods. The Chimu, revered Namelap, the creator, watching over your craft. You hum that old tune. Remember that gull broker. It's circling above, blessing the scene. A mainstream historical fact, the Chimu built monumental temples like Chanchan's Huaca, Arco Iris by the 1200s, centers of worship that influence daily life. You chuckle bet the priest didn't mention the sore knees from bowing. You begin your work shaping a new lump of clay, the rhythm syncing with the soft chants drifting from the temple. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu believe the clay held the breath of ancestors guiding potters' hands during sacred times. You pause, imagining a ghostly nudge, and grin. Maybe that's why your last pot turned out so well. The sun climbs, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the dust. Historians still argue whether these temples were purely religious or also political power bases. Either way, their presence steadies you. The first joke: why did the potter pray at the temple to get a divine design? By mid-morning, you've formed a small vessel, its shape echoing the temple's curves, and you stretch your knees, creaking with a potter's wisdom. The second joke: what do you call a potter near a temple? A clay ergi worker. The scent of burning sage wafts over, and you lose yourself in the process. The clay's coolness, a contrast to the growing heat. A lizard skitters by your supervisor's back, and you nod unfazed. The temple bells toll a deep resonance, and you feel part of something larger, your craft a thread in the Chimu tapestry. The afternoon deepens, and you add a simple design, a spiral mimicking the temple steps, the brush strokes deliberate. The air grows thick with incense, and you hum along the rhythm, lulling you into a trance. The third joke: why did the pot visit the temple to find its holy shape? The sun beats down, and you wipe your face, smearing more clay. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this vessel offered at a ritual, its spirit rising with the smoke, and the thought fills you with peace. As dusk falls, you set the pot aside, the temple's shadow lengthening across your work. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan blending with the chants, and feel a quiet reverence. This life shaped by the sacred is your anchor in the Chimu world. You wake to the soft glow of dawn seeping through your hut, the air carrying the warm aroma of roasting maize, and the faint echo of temple chants from yesterday. Your hands, still tinged with clay dust, feel ready to contribute, and you step outside where the village hums with life. Today you're feeding the community pot, your vessels holding the bounty for a communal feast, the scent of spices and firewood drawing you to the gathering spot. The morning cool brushes your skin, and you probably won't survive this without a grease stain or a full belly, but that's the joy of sharing. You carry your latest pot, its spiral design gleaming toward the central plaza, where women stir massive cauldrons and men haul wood. The ground feels alive under your sandals, vibrating with laughter and the clatter of utensils, and you set your pot down, its weight, a gift to the group. You hum that old tune. Remember that lizard supervisor? He's basking near the fire, overseeing the feast. A mainstream historical fact, the Chimu thrived on communal agriculture by the 1300s, with feasts reinforcing social bonds across their society. You smirk, bet they didn't mention the cleanup crew. You join the effort ladling stew into your pot, the rich smell of peppers and fish filling your lungs. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu believed feasting pots gained magic if filled with love. So you stir with a grin, imagining a sprinkle of affection. The sun climbs, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the steam. Historians still argue whether these feasts were purely social or tied to religious cycles. Either way, you feel the unity. The first joke. Why did the potter love feasts? He got to dish out his best work. By mid-morning, the plaza buzzes, children darting around with sticky fingers, and you stretch your knees, creaking with a potter's wisdom. The second joke. What do you call a potter at a feast? A clay terror. You add maize to your pot, the golden kernels popping in the heat, and the scent draws a crowd. A gull swoops by, nature's guest, and you chuckle, unfazed. The steam rises, a warm hug, and you lose yourself in the rhythm of serving, the clink of pottery blending with voices. The afternoon heats up, and you help distribute the meal, the pot emptying as smiles spread. The taste, spicy, hearty, lingers on your tongue, and you hum along, the energy lulling you. The third joke. Why did the pot join the feast? It wanted to be the main clay traction. The sun beats down, and you wipe your face, smearing grease. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this food-sustaining traders and priests, your craft at the heart, and the thought warms you. As dusk falls, the feast winds down the plaza, quieting with satisfied sighs. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan, mixing with the crickets, and feel a deep connection. This pot, this meal, is your thread in the Chimu fabric. You wake to the rumble of distant thunder, the air thick with moisture as dawn struggles through your hut's reed walls. Your hands still scented with yesterday's feast spices feel the tension building, and you step outside where the sky looms gray over the coast. Today, you are weathering El Niño's wrath, the chaotic floods testing your resilience, and craft the scent of wet earth and salt heavy in your lungs. The ground squishes under your sandals, already softening, and you probably won't survive this without soaked clothes or a muddy tumble. But that's the Chimu challenge. You glance at your workspace, the pots from the feast now vulnerable, and rush to move them to higher ground. The river swells, its roar growing, and you haul your creations, the clay slick under your fingers. Remember that gull guest, its screeching overhead, warning of the deluge. The first drops fall cool and heavy, and you scramble, the water pooling fast. A mainstream historical fact, El Niño floods disrupted Chimu life by the 1400s, forcing adaptations in agriculture and craftsmanship. You mutter, bet they didn't plan for this mess. The rain intensifies, a drumming beat on your back, and you secure your kiln area, the adobe softening under the onslaught. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu elders claimed El Niño was a god's tantrum demanding offerings to calm the waters. You toss a shell into the flood, grinning worth a shot. The sun vanishes behind clouds, and sweat mixes with rain, the chill seeping in. Historians still argue whether the Chimu mitigated these floods with engineering or ritual. Either way, you're fighting to save your work. The first joke. Why did the potter fear El Niño? It turned his pots into clay puddles. By mid-morning, the flood surges, swallowing low paths, and you wade through your knees, aching with a potter's wisdom. The second joke. What do you call a potter in a flood? A clay vigator. You salvage clay from the riverbank, the water cold against your legs, and the scent of mud fills the air. A lizard scurries past your supervisors fleeing, and you chuckle undeterred. The chaos lulls you into a strange focus, the rain's rhythm guiding your hands. The afternoon darkens, and you mold a quick pot, the wet clay pliable despite the storm. The third joke: why did the pot float away? It wanted a current adventure. The floodwaters recede slightly, leaving a slick mess, and you wipe your face. Smearing mud, oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this resilience echoing through Chimu history, your craft a lifeline, and the thought steadies you. As dusk settles, the rain eases the ground a soggy mirror. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan blending with the drip drip, and feel a quiet strength. This battle with nature is your story. You wake to the soft patter of lingering raindrops on your hut's roof, the air thick with the earthy aftermath of El Niño's retreat. Your hands still caked with yesterday's muddy clay feel weary yet determined, and you step outside where the damp ground glistens under a hesitant dawn. Today you're passing down clay wisdom, teaching the next generation. With patient guidance, the scent of wet soil and hope mingling in the breeze. The morning chill brushes your skin, and you probably won't survive this without a sore throat from explaining or a clay smear on a student, but that's the teacher's trade. You gather a small group of wide-eyed children near your workspace, their chatter a lively contrast to the quiet river. You unwrap a fresh lump of clay, its coolness a familiar friend, and demonstrate the first need, your hands moving with a rhythm honed by years. Remember that lizard fleeing the flood? He's back watching curiously. You show them how to press and pull, the grit of shells scratching your palms, and their tiny hands mimic you, giggles erupting. A mainstream historical fact, the Chimu passed down craftsmanship orally by the 1300s, ensuring skills survived through generations. You smile, but they didn't mention the patience required. You guide a girl, her fingers trembling as she shapes a lumpy ball, and offer a steadying hand, the clay squishing between you. A quirky tidbit: some Chimu elders believe teaching claycraft invited ancestral spirits to guide the young. And you wink, maybe they're here now. The sun peeks out, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the dust. Historians still argue whether this oral tradition was intentional or a necessity. Either way, you feel a legacy growing. The first joke: why did the potter teach kids to mold some clever minds? By mid-morning, the children's pots take shape wobbly but earnest, and you stretch your knees creaking with a potter's wisdom. The second joke: what do you call a potter's class, a clay education session? You add water to a boy's work, the splash a cool relief, and the scent of wet earth fills the air. A gull soars by nature's observer, and you chuckle unfazed. The rhythm of their learning lulls you, their questions a soft hum in the background. The afternoon deepens, and you refine a child's bowl, your hands steadying theirs, the clay warm from their effort. The third joke: why did the student pot break? It couldn't handle the pressure of learning. The sun beats down, and you wipe your face, smearing more clay. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine these kids carrying your craft forward, their laughter a thread in the Chimu weave, and the thought fills you with pride. As dusk falls, the lesson ends, the children scattering with their pots. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan blending with the crickets, and feel a quiet fulfillment. This wisdom passed on is your gift to the future. You wake to the golden glow of dawn spilling through your hut, the air alive with the sweet scent of ripening maize, and the distant hum of village preparations. Your hands still warm from yesterday's teaching, feel eager to join the celebration, and you step outside where the fields shimmer with harvest abundance. Today you're celebrating harvest with clay, your pots honoring the land's bounty, the earthy aroma of freshly turned soil, blending with the morning breeze. The cool grass brushes your sandals, and you probably won't survive this festivity without a sticky palm from maize syrup or a dance-induced stumble, but that's the joy of the season. You carry a stack of your finest pots spiraled and sturdy toward the plaza, the weight a tribute to the earth's gifts. The village buzzes with activity, women weaving garlands, and men hauling baskets, and you set your creations down near a makeshift altar. You hum that old tune, Remember That Gull Observer. It's swooping overhead, joining the revelry. A mainstream historical fact, the Chimu celebrated harvest by the 1300s, with rituals that thank the land, their pottery central to offerings. You grin, bet they didn't mention the sore arms from carrying pots. You fill a pot with golden maize, its kernels glinting in the sun, and add a drizzle of syrup, the sticky sweetness coating your fingers. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu believed harvest pots held the spirit of the crops, ensuring next year's yield, if danced around. You sway a little, chuckling. Let's hope the spirits approve. The sun climbs, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the syrup. Historians still argue whether these celebrations were purely agricultural or deeply spiritual. Either way, you feel the pulse of gratitude. The first joke. Why did the potter love harvest? He got to crop up some pots. By mid-morning, the plaza fills with dancers, their feet pounding the earth, and you stretch your knees, creaking with a potter's wisdom. The second joke. What do you call a potter at a harvest dance? A clay shaker. You join the circle, a pot in hand, the rhythm of drums blending with laughter. A lizard darts by your supervisor's back, and you nod unfazed. The scent of roasted maize rises a warm embrace, and you lose yourself in the motion. The afternoon heats up, and you offer your pot at the altar. Its contents a gift to the gods, the crowd's cheers lifting your spirit. The third joke. Why did the pot join the harvest? To be the main grain attraction. The sun beats down and you wipe your face, smearing syrup. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this ritual echoing through Chimu history, your craft honoring the land, and the thought fills you with peace. As dusk falls, the celebration winds down, the plaza glowing with firelight. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan, blending with the night's quiet, and feel a deep connection. This harvest marked by clay is your tribute to the Chimu cycle. You wake to the soft rustle of dawn breaking through your hut, the air carrying a faint smoky trace from last night's harvest fires, and the earthy scent of damp soil. Your hands still sticky from yesterday's maize syrup, feel the call to mend, and you step outside where a cracked pot from the feast lies waiting. Today you're repairing life's cracks, mirroring the mending of community bonds, the morning cool, brushing your skin as you settle at your workspace. The ground feels firm under your sandals, and you probably won't survive this without a glue-stained finger or a sore back from leaning, but that's the healer's task. You pick up the broken pot, its spiral design marred by a jagged split, and run your fingers over the edges, the clay rough and familiar. You gather a mix of wet clay and crushed shells, a paste to bind it, and hum that old tune. Remember that lizard supervisor? He's perched nearby, judging your repair. The scent of the paste rises earthy and sharp as you press it into the crack, smoothing it with a wet finger. A mainstream historical fact, the Chimu repaired pottery by the 1300s, a testament to their resourcefulness amid a fragile world. You chuckle, bet they didn't mention the sticky mess. You work slowly, the paste cooling against your skin, and reinforce the mend with a thin strip of reed tying it tight. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu believed mended pots held extra strength, blessed by the spirits of resilience. You nod, adding a silent prayer, can't hurt, right? The sun climbs, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the clay dust. Historians still argue whether these repairs were practical or symbolic of community healing. Either way, you feel a bond forming. The first joke. Why did the potter fix pots to clay them back together? By mid-morning, the man holds the pot regaining shape, and you stretch your knees creaking with a potter's wisdom. The second joke. What do you call a potter's repair? A clay patch miracle. You test the seal with a gentle tap, the sound a soft thud, and the scent of wet earth fills the air. A gull glides by nature's witness, and you smile, unfazed. The rhythm of mending lulls you, the crack disappearing under your care. The afternoon deepens, and you add a decorative line over the repair, turning the flaw into art. The brush strokes steady. The third joke. Why did the pot need fixing? It had a crack up at the feast. The sun beats down, and you wipe your face. Smearing paste. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this mended pot serving again, its story of renewal echoing through the village, and the thought warms you. As dusk falls, you set the pot aside to dry its mend, a quiet triumph. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan blending with the crickets, and feel a deep satisfaction. This repair, like the community, grows stronger with care. You wake to the faint creak of your hut as dawn filters through the air, carrying an unusual tension mingled with the familiar salty breeze from the coast. Your hands still dusted with yesterday's repair paste sense a shift, and you step outside where the horizon hints at change. Today, you're facing Spanish shadows, the looming arrival of conquerors altering your world, the morning cool brushing your skin as you pause at your workspace. The ground feels steady under your sandals, but a chill runs through you, and you probably won't survive this day without a knot in your stomach or a whispered fear, but that's the weight of history. You glance at your mended pot, its spiral design a quiet defiance, and hear distant rumors, strange ships with white sails spotted offshore. You hum that old tune, remember that gull witness. It's circling uneasily, mirroring your unease. The scent of clay mixes with the sea, and you shape a new vessel, your fingers trembling slightly, the clay cool and grounding. A mainstream historical fact, the Spanish arrived in Peru by 1532, their conquest ending the Chimu's independence under the Inca and reshaping local crafts. You sigh, bet they didn't plan for pottery to feel so heavy. You work the clay, adding a subtle cross pattern, a cautious nod to the new power, the grit of shells scratching your palms. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu whispered that foreign spirits rode those ships, demanding tribute in clay. You pause, glancing seaward, maybe they're watching now. The sun climbs, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the dust. Historians still argue whether the Chimu resisted or adapted to Spanish rule. Either way, you feel the world tilting. The first joke. Why did the potter fear the Spanish? They might claim his tools. By mid-morning, a trader brings news of armored men marching inland, and you stretch your knees creaking with a potter's wisdom. The second joke. What do you call a potter under conquest? A claytive worker. You pack your pots, the weight a burden, and the scent of the sea grows sharper. A lizard darts by, your supervisor's nervous, and you nod unsettled. The rhythm of your craft feels strained, the clay's coolness a fleeting comfort. The afternoon darkens with clouds, and you hide a pot, its design, a secret rebellion. The brushstrokes hurried. The third joke. Why did the pot hide? It didn't want a Spanish makeover. The sun beats down and you wipe your face. Smearing clay, oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine these conquerors eyeing your work, their steel clashing with your tradition, and the thought tightens your chest. As dusk falls, the first Spanish voices echo faintly, a foreign hum. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan, blending with your worry, and feel a fragile resolve. This shadow creeping over your craft is your new reality. You wake to the muted light of dawn seeping through your hut, the air heavy with the unfamiliar clang of Spanish steel and the fading scent of your clay. Your hands still trembling from yesterday's unease, feel the need to adapt, and you step outside where the village buzzes with tension under new colonial shadows. Today you're adapting old ways, adjusting your craft to survive under these pressures, the morning cool brushing your skin as you approach your workspace. The ground feels uneven under your sandals marked by foreign boots, and you probably won't survive this without a frustrated sigh or a smudged design, but that's the potter's resilience. You eye your hidden pot, its rebellious spiral, a quiet memory, and decide to blend it with a cross, a cautious compromise. You need fresh clay, the coolness steadying your nerves, and hum that old tune. Remember that lizard's nervousness. He's skulking nearby, wary of the change. The scent of earth mixes with the metallic tang of Spanish tools, and you shape a vessel, your fingers tracing a hybrid pattern. A mainstream historical fact: after 1532, Chimu potters adapted to Spanish demands, crafting items like plates and cups alongside traditional wares. You mutter, bet they didn't enjoy the shift. You press the clay, adding a subtle cross over the spiral, the grit of shells, a familiar anchor, and test its feel. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu whispered, that blending old and new designs tricked the conquerors into accepting their spirit. You grin, hoping it works, maybe a little magic lingers. The sun climbs, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the dust. Historians still argue whether this adaptation was survival or cultural erosion. Either way, you feel the balance teeter. The first joke: why did the potter change styles to claim up to the new boss? By mid-morning, a Spanish overseer inspects your work, nodding at the cross, and you stretch your knees, creaking with a potter's wisdom. The second joke: what do you call a potter's compromise? A clayware tactic. You fire the pot, the kiln's heat, a comfort, and the scent of smoke rises. A gull flies by, nature's skeptic, and you chuckle undeterred. The rhythm of adaptation lulls you, the clay's warmth, a thread of continuity. The afternoon deepens, and you refine the design, adding a faint spiral beneath the cross. A secret nod to your roots. The third joke: why did the pot adapt? It didn't want to be fired by the Spanish. The sun beats down, and you wipe your face, smearing clay. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this pot serving both worlds, your craft a bridge, and the thought steadies you. As dusk falls, the village quiets under Spanish watch. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan blending with the night, and feel a quiet determination. This adaptation born of necessity keeps your Chimu soul alive. You wake to the pale light of dawn piercing your hut, the air tinged with the cold edge of change, and the faint echo of Spanish commands from the village. Your hands, still marked by yesterday's hybrid design, feel a pang of loss, and you step outside where your workspace sits under a sky heavy with history. Today you're hearing echoes of a lost art, reflecting on the fading traditions. As the Chimu era wanes, the morning cool brushing your skin with a somber touch. The ground feels worn under your sandals, scarred by time, and you probably won't survive this day without a heavy heart or a dusty tear, but that's the weight of memory. You touch a pot, its cross spiral, a bittersweet reminder, and listen to the silence where once children's laughter filled the air. You knead clay the coolness, a faint comfort and hum. That old tune, remember that gull skeptic. It's gone now, a sign of shifting winds. The scent of earth lingers, but it's overshadowed by the smell of foreign leather and iron. A mainstream historical fact by the mid-1500s Spanish rule eroded Chimu culture, with pottery production declining as local traditions faded. You sigh, bet they didn't mourn the lost songs. You shape a small vessel, your fingers slow, tracing patterns that feel like ghosts. The grit of shells, a fading echo. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu elders believed the clay wept when the old ways died, and you pause, imagining a soft sob. Maybe it's just the breeze. The sun climbs, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the dust. Historians still argue whether this decline was inevitable or resisted. Either way, you feel the void. The first joke. Why did the potter grow quiet? His clay M ran out. By mid-morning, the village feels emptier, the kiln cold, and you stretch your knees creaking with a potter's wisdom. The second joke. What do you call a fading craft, a clay sting memory? You fire the pot, the smoke a thin wisp, and the scent of burnt wood stirs old memories. A lizard lingers your supervisor's last stand, and you nod wistful. The rhythm of loss lulls you, the clay's warmth a fleeting hold. The afternoon deepens, and you add a faint spiral. A last tribute, the brush strokes heavy. The third joke. Why did the pot fade? It couldn't, clay am the new world. The sun beats down, and you wipe your face smearing clay. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this pot as a relic, its story a whisper, and the thought tightens your chest. As dusk falls, the village darkens under Spanish rule. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan blending with the silence, and feel a quiet grief. These echoes fading into history are your Chimu farewell. You wake to the dim light of dawn seeping through your hut, the air heavy with the weight of yesterday's silence and the faint mustiness of aging clay. Your hands, weathered from years of shaping, tremble with a mix of pride and sorrow, and you step outside where your workspace stands as a quiet testament to a fading craft. Today you're crafting your last pot's story, a masterpiece that stands as a testament to your life's work. The morning cool brushing your skin with a gentle farewell. The ground feels soft under your sandals worn by time, and you probably won't survive this day without a lump in your throat or a clay-stained cheek, but that's the potter's legacy. You take a deep breath, the scent of earth and memory filling your lungs, and reach for the last lump of clay, its coolness a final embrace. You knead it slowly, your fingers tracing patterns of spirals and crosses. Remember that lizard's last stand. He's gone now, leaving you alone with your craft. The rhythm steadies you, the grit of shells, a familiar friend, and you hum that old tune, its notes carrying decades. A mainstream historical fact by the late 1500s, Chimu pottery dwindled under Spanish influence, with only a few masters like you preserving the art. You smile faintly, bet they didn't know the tears it cost. You shape the pot with care, its walls rising like a monument, the clay yielding to your touch as if honoring your journey. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu believe the final pot held the potter's soul released into the earth upon completion. You pause, imagining your spirit dancing in the clay, and nod, let it be so. The sun climbs, warming your back, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the dust. Historians still argue whether these last works were acts of defiance or acceptance. Either way, you pour your heart into it. The first joke. Why did the potter make one last pot to claim his goodbye? By mid-morning, the pot takes form its curves elegant, and you stretch your knees, creaking with a lifetime's wisdom. The second joke. What do you call a potter's final work? A clay-sick farewell. You smooth the rim with a wet finger, the coolness a relief, and the scent of wet earth rises. A gull's cry echoes nature's elegy, and you chuckle softly undeterred. The rhythm of creation lulls you, the clay's warmth, a final gift. The afternoon deepens, and you add a spiral, a last tribute to your roots. The brush strokes deliberate. The third joke. Why did the pot shine? It held the potter's clayite. The sun beats down, and you wipe your face, smearing clay. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this pot enduring its story, whispered through time, and the thought lifts your spirit. As dusk falls, you set the pot to dry its surface gleaming under the fading light. You lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan blending with the night's quiet, and feel a profound peace. This last creation, your life's echo, is your gift to the Chimu legacy. You wake to the gentle fade of dawn slipping through your hut, the air carrying the soft weight of years, and the distant murmur of a world moving on. Your hands trembling with age and memory feel the finality of your craft, and you step outside where your workspace rests, under a sky tinged with goodbye. Today, you're letting clay memories fade away, leaving behind a legacy as the Chimu potter's tale softly ends the morning cool, brushing your skin with a tender farewell. The ground feels gentle under your sandals, smoothed by time, and you probably won't survive this day without a quiet tear or a weary smile, but that's the close of a life well lived. You touch your last pot, its spiral cross design, a bridge between past and present, and sit beside it, the clay cool against your fingertips. The scent of earth lingers, a faint echo of rivers and harvests, and you hum that old tune. Remember that gull's elegy. Its cry is gone now, leaving only silence. The breeze carries the rustle of leaves, a soft lullaby, and you feel the weight of your journey. A mainstream historical fact by the early 1600s. Chimu pottery traditions vanished under Spanish rule, their artisans fading into history's shadow. You sigh, bet they didn't feel the loss so keenly. You trace the pot's curves, its surface a map of your life, the grit of shells, a final connection. A quirky tidbit, some Chimu believe the potter's spirit joined the clay, at the end guarding it through time. You smile, imagining yourself in its lines, a guardian of memory. The sun climbs, warming your back, and a tear mixes with the dust on your cheek. Historians still argue whether this end was a tragedy or a transformation. Either way, you feel a quiet release. The first joke, why did the potter fade away? His clay was done. By mid-morning, the village stirs with foreign voices, and you stretch your knees aching with a lifetime's wisdom. The second joke, what do you call a potter's end? A clay-ozing chapter. You set the pot in the sun to dry the warmth. A gentle embrace, and the scent of earth fades. A lizard's shadow flickers nature's last nod, and you chuckle softly at peace. The rhythm of memory lulls you, the clay's coolness, a final comfort. The afternoon softens, and you watch the pot, its story complete the light, playing on its surface. The third joke, why did the pot stay still? It knew the potter's clayum was over. The sun dips, and you wipe your face, smearing a last clay mark. Oops, there goes the clean look. You imagine this legacy enduring a whisper in the wind, and the thought eases your heart. As night falls, the village quiets, the stars emerging like old friends. The pacing slows, the vocabulary softens. and you lean back, the soft hum of an imagined fan blending with the gentle rustle of leaves, a calming whisper carrying you away. The pot sits a silent sentinel, its story woven into the earth, and you feel reassured, your Chimu life fading into a peaceful dream. The legacy of your hands resting in the stillness,